Hey everyone, welcome to the first ever episode of Seven Figure Fitness Business with your hosts. I'm Andrew Poulton.
Andrew Gosen.
Awesome guys. Now, what we want to do is, without going into like a long-winded spiel about everything about us from the get-go, the truth is you don't really know who we are, and we want to give you a quick rundown on a couple of things before we get started. So I want to cover who we are and why you should listen to us, why we're doing this, and who exactly this podcast is for.
Yeah, so this podcast is for you if you're a personal trainer, if you own a gym and you're looking at going online, or if you've currently got an online business that is, not really established, you're looking at taking it to 6, 7, 8 figures for anyone who wants to be on the online space. And the reason why we're here talking to you guys is we want to help you. We've got this incredible story to share about how we've gone from zero to a business that's on its way to being 8 figures. And, we want to share this with you so you don't make the same mistakes that we have made along the way. You can get there faster. And for me, that comes down to, one of the things that's really important to me is being a provider. And I want to, help business owners. I'm so passionate about business, and I want to help business owners, be able to help more people, to create impact and to support their families better.
Yeah, right on there with that. And like 3 years ago, we weren't actually running an online business like this at all. Basically, what we've been able to achieve in the last 3 years is to have a business now that we created from nothing, which is doing multiple 7 figures. But also we are business coaches and mentors for fitness business owners as well, with another business called Systems by Design, where we're helping people like you, our listeners, who are either wanting to go online or you're already online but are struggling with different aspects like the marketing, the sales, or the fulfillment. So a big part of why we're doing this is to help you get there faster and avoid all of our mistakes, as G said.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Now, what we're going to do on the show today is we're going to be running through something that is going to be incredibly valuable for all of you, we believe, and that is our very first week creating this business. What we did was we created a 7-day challenge as a conversion tool to pull people in who didn't know anything about us and to sell them into our program. And we're going to be breaking down some of the most important steps in that process so that you can all do the same. Now, the first thing I'd like you to chat about, G, is the headspace and the difference between you and I before getting started.
Well, I think it's fair to say that you like to read lots of books. And I think for you, it was you read lots of books and that often led to inaction, whereas I'm probably the complete opposite, right? I'm the guy who has mild dyslexia, doesn't really read, and just gets shit done.
Yeah, I mean, there's almost like a form of, call it anxiety, OCD with me where, I'd buy a course and I'd start on the very first thing and, Ghost would have a quick look at it and just grab the information that he needed. And he was ahead of me straight away. So that was a really interesting thing for me to be aware of when my personality was actually letting me down and where my insecurities or my fear of taking action caused me to procrastinate.
Yeah, I think that, and together, we're a really, really good combination because I might go a little bit too much the other way. You are where you were. And together, we really balance each other out, which is one of the most important things about having a business partnership.
Yeah. And I've not become any less of a fan of reading. I've got the biggest book collection you've ever seen in your life. The thing about it though, is these days when I read a book, I'm not doing it as a form of therapy because it makes me feel better. I'm just keeping myself busy. These days I'm reading because I'm looking to pull gems out of it that we can practically apply. And there's a big difference.
Yeah. And I think that, what's been really, really great is watching, both of our progression, but seeing where you were and now seeing you being an absolute beast at taking action.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And obviously I appreciate you kind of giving me the kick up the bum that I needed back then. Okay. So the first thing we want to do, we're going to get into the goods on this episode. You're going to have some incredibly valuable stuff that you can take away and hopefully have a successful week we did when we earned 10K. Now, the first thing I'm going to ask is, G, we had a challenge that we created, but people didn't really know who we were. So how did you go about getting people who didn't know us into the challenge group?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is I just want to give you a little bit of background about where I was with, our business is called Hyperthyroid Body Transformation. And, for me, that's about helping, well, we help women, but for helping people who went through a similar thing to myself because I have thyroid problems. Now, working in a big box gym, I ended up with loads and loads of clients who had thyroid problems. And to make more impact, a no-brainer for us to go online. Now, the way we did that was I literally just turned on an ad. I have a bit of a marketing background, always done that inside of the gym to get leads, turned on an ad, and it was just crazy. All of a sudden, we have leads flying through the door. Back in that day, we were getting them for about $1 each. And all of a sudden, we had an entire 7-day challenge group completely full.
Yeah, and it was amazing. I remember just us being so thrilled about how many women were in there, and they all came in and they were looking for something pretty epic. They'd obviously come into this group, and now we had a challenge. We actually had to deliver something good to these ladies. One of the big things that we learned early on was that connection in a challenge is essential. I was teaching them the habits that were going to help them lose weight, and you were teaching them about your story so that they could connect.
That's exactly right. There's a battle here going on. There's the technician versus the storyteller. And, I think that, we used to get on a whole bunch of sales calls and AP, tell the listeners about that.
So I would be on phone calls for more than our first year, and people would be like, "Oh my gosh, Andrew." And they'd hear my voice and they'd go, "Oh, hang on a second. Are you the other Andrew?" And I'd be like, "Yes, I'm the other Andrew." I didn't even need to ask any more questions. It was simply because the fact that I was teaching them how to lose weight, that was great, but they can go and find that information anywhere. What makes your program and your challenge different is the story that you tell that connects the people to you.
Yeah, and my story, sharing that with these women, a lot of them hadn't been in a community of other women all struggling with thyroid problems. The nature of online is that you actually attract a lot of ladies a lot of people who are from the country, right? So putting them in a group where they could share their common experiences led by me. And what I did was I shared, some of the deepest cuts that I'd faced in my life. And I was really open, honest, and genuine. And, told them all about when I had chronic fatigue, told them about the fact that, I'd lost my identity, that I was a personal trainer who suddenly gained weight. And their ability to, them relating to me was the absolute power of the group, because there are plenty of people who've done this in the past and haven't had a niche and haven't focused on a specific population. But, for us, it was just like blue oceans. All of a sudden, the world just opened up with all these people coming to us.
Yeah, like the thing about it, everyone, that was so powerful was it was just the vulnerability that G was willing to show. He had some really ridiculous things that he'd done. I mean, he'd gone to India and he'd gone in some sort of pretty much looked like a cook pot where they had you in like butter or oil or something.
You should actually see the video in the content that we give you later on as well. So I had like a little PowerPoint presentation, right? And it actually had photos of me being cooked in a box in India.
They're making you vomit with milk and all sorts of stuff like that. It was very, very strange. But what that meant is that vulnerability that he was willing to show in his own story, his own vulnerability story, was we have members from that very first challenge 3 years ago who are still friends to this day. And that was because they felt a sense of togetherness and community. They'd been incredibly isolated by the issue that they were struggling with, hypothyroidism. No one at the time was really helping them en masse. And we provided them a place, a safe place where they could come share their goals, their successes, and their challenges, right? So it was huge.
Yeah, that's it. Like, I think you touched on that there. It's like community, community, community. And community has to be led by someone. And, the relationships, they're holding each other accountable. They're bringing each other up to that level, higher expectations.
Yeah. Now, the next thing I'm going to discuss is, for a lot of you, if you haven't made a challenge before, you've got them in the group, you've got some sense of community now and connection, but now you need to know what you're actually going to deliver to these people. And what we did was we were very tactical about the way that we broke it down. We did some modeling off other programs that we'd seen working, but effectively what we did was we gave them daily habits that we knew that would allow them to lose a reasonable amount of weight in a short period of time, and keeping things simple. So do you want to sort of break down a little bit about what we actually did, G?
Yeah. So I think like one of the most important things that you can do to, win someone over is to get them results in advance. So what would happen is they'd do this 7-day challenge. We've got Andrew impressing everyone with his technician skills. You've got me sharing my story. And then all of a sudden, they're losing 2 to 3 kilos within the first week, right? And that is just like power, because it's like, these are the guys who are going to help me change my life. And the way that we did that was really simple. And I'm going to run through these really quickly. But what we did was on day 1, we got them to eat vegetables only. Day 2, we got them to fast. Day 3, we got them to drink 3 liters of water. And day 4, we got them to eat protein, et cetera, et cetera. And what would happen is they, doing all of those things, it was all cumulative, by the way. So they would all add up one after the other, doing one change per day. But by the time
we weren't starving people, that's important.
We definitely weren't starving people. There are a few members who had made a little mistake thinking that day 3 was water only, but just purely because they didn't read the videos. But regardless, what would happen is they would complete the challenge, they'd come back, they'd lost 2 to 3 kilos, and then the sales calls were the easiest sales calls we'd ever made in our life, right? After all of those things knocked up, it's like, hey, I've never been that great at sales, but it was like, hey, do you want to just continue on and keep working with me? Yeah, sure. What are your credit card details? Great.
Yeah, it was a very unpolished, business at the time, in the sense that there were a lot of different things that we hadn't actually thought about.
It's so unpolished that I was like filming the videos day by day in my pajamas, because it was just like, and that added to the relatability as well.
And if you're wondering what that looks like and just how weird, G looked in his pajamas, we did this in his house. It was all very low production cost. But we're actually going to be giving you, as a special gift at the end of the episode today, we're actually going to be giving you a download link so that you can actually get access to our original challenge, which we used for more than a year, and it generated us hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. Yeah. So it's a really, really powerful template. Now, we're getting people results in the challenge now. We're looking after them. The next thing, which is going to really be a roadblock for a lot of you, is how do you transition from getting somebody in a free challenge to getting them on a phone call to discuss a paid program? So in other words, when and how did we actually decide to put the call to action out?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways. Like we just talked a little bit about what happens at the end of the challenge, someone getting a transformation in advance. But what we realized after running the challenge for a little bit was that people don't have a high level of motivation. They don't have the willpower to actually continue. So what we would do is we started putting out our call to action on day 3, where we pretty much just said, hey, do you want to continue working with us? And, if there's no downside to doing that, because they're still going to do the challenge if not, but you get the opportunity to get people on the phone before they have an opportunity to quit. Thinking about a day and age right now, and if you're going to use this for practical application, if you're going to model off us, you're going to realize that most people don't actually continue on. So you have to sell them at an earlier stage.
That's it. And, this is something I want to dive into a little bit more, guys, is G is actually an expert marketer for fitness. I would actually say he's possibly the best fitness marketer in the world in this space. For myself, what I do is I've actually become a sales expert through massive repetition. I mean, I'm now running a sales team of around about 15 people, and I'm a sales coach. And what I experienced as well is that we actually get a huge amount of people deciding to purchase early on in the challenge, because not only are they the most motivated then, but sometimes people delude themselves into thinking that they've got this from here after 7 days of free information. So even though it might go against your procrastinating self, once again, don't feel hesitation to try and sell people before day 7 and 8. It's a mistake. You want to reach out to them and put the feelers out much earlier on. You'll get more opportunities. You'll get really motivated prospects. And they're also not in that stage where they believe that 7 days of free information is going to change their life.
That's it. It's like 7 days is 7 days. And, I don't for one second believe that anyone's going to change their life completing that 7 days. So it really is, you kind of do shit a little bit on the program, the process that you put them through, in order to say like, hey, look, if we're really going to help you change your life, the commitment is this.
Yep, I agree. So, okay, that's the next step, is how to actually get people on the phone. Now we're going to transition to something else that's going to push a lot of buttons out there as well. To do this, we did not spend months and months putting together a program so that it was perfect and ready to go. We took action fast. We followed the AG handbook here, and basically we didn't have a program. We were very good at what we did. We'd been doing this for more than 10 years in the industry, so we knew our stuff. But what we sat down was we mapped out a bit of a framework for exactly how this journey would work. It was originally a 12-week program and we started to sell it. So how do you go about the process of selling something that doesn't actually exist?
Well, I think like we did map out the rough structure. Like, one thing I'll say about AP is he's an absolute technician when it comes to nutritional knowledge and so forth. So we had that basis. But for a large part of this, I'll go back to the 7-day challenge first, right? Like we literally would wake up each morning, as I said, in my pajamas, hold the phone up, selfie video, and just talk about what we wanted to talk about. And it was so relatable, the fact that I was in my pajamas. But what we actually did was we had the gun to the head. It was like, if we don't film a video on that day, we're behind and we're going to be letting people down, which is I operate by far my best when I do that. Even when I'm doing work today, getting stuff out for the business coaching business, that's what I do.
I was just going to touch on that point because gun to the head mentality has really been one of the biggest things that's driven us forward. As a philosophy, it's been huge. I know for a fact, because once upon a time I procrastinated by reading a book on procrastination, that the things that actually cause procrastination are the time available to complete the task. If you've got a month, people tend to take a month. They put it off. If you've got a night, you get it done in a night. The other thing is basically the size of the task. For us, the size of the task has never really mattered. We've just decided to go hard and take action quickly. Everything that we do, we don't give ourselves a month. We commit to things so that we've got like 2-3 days tops. And it's allowed us to grow as fast as we have.
And what happened was, because we'd overcommitted, we got to test the product. We got to realize if it worked. What happens if you go out there and you go out, design your full 21-week program, and then you can't market it, right? What's the point? So a lot of people, they go for the perfectionists. That might be you, right? So what we did was we had no program and we just sold 20 ladies into our 16-week program or 12-week program at the time, wasn't it? It became 21 weeks afterwards, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, we actually went from 12, 16, 21.
Yeah, soon to be 26, I think. So what would happen is we would week by week be sitting there getting all the content ready so that we could, pretty much give these clients their transformation. It worked really well. I remember AP, you were pretty much took control of that, for the most part. And it was just like literally has to be done.
It was a really great way to do it as well because we were so connected to the customer because we were kind of creating the program like week by week, which meant that if we noticed that there was questions being asked or problems that they had, we were able to create the program the first time round to iron out all those issues. Now, there were still absolutely loads of issues that existed and there always are going to be. But that's a really important point is that by being able to launch before we actually had a program completed, we were able to do things faster. And we were selling new customers every single week up until we got to the point where we had 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 21. It never really stopped. So that's a huge thing for anybody out there. Please don't think that you need to create a program from start to finish before you launch. It may be the worst decision you can possibly make.
And at the end of the day, marketing controls everything, right?
Yep.
If you can't market, you can't make money. So, you better be sorting that out and testing that you can do that. And if it's not working, go work on, if you want to do organic and do it for free, go work on that skill. If you want to run ads, go work on that ad skill. And, even if you're doing a super low budget on ads, for example, and testing to see if you're getting the return, and then you can feel confident about moving forward.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a brief recap about some of the points that we've made on the show today, just for the listeners so that you can really sort of conceptualize these and have them clear in your mind. We basically talked about the idea of how we actually get people into a challenge. And then G gave you some great advice about that. We spoke about the concept of needing to have a story. You can't just be a technician. You can't just be a good weight loss coach. Your story is what connects and sells, and it's what creates loyalty with your audience. We also mentioned making sure that you created a challenge in a way so that it was almost guaranteed to get your challenge customers amazing results. We spoke about the importance of putting out a call to action early and multiple times so that you had as many catchments as possible. And we also spoke about the idea of being able to take action, gun to the head mentality, and being able to sell a program that didn't exist in its entirety. Anything else you would add to that on the recap, G?
I think you pretty much covered it all.
Yeah. So the final thing that we wanted to discuss and leave you with is just what we see some of people's biggest mistakes when it comes to getting started. So what I did want to run through is just basically how important it is to set clear goals about what you want with clear time constraints, gun to the head. Next thing is to take imperfect action. Go, go, go. Make sure that you're getting things done. And then finally, and this one is really, really important in going about this process, it's about making sure that you don't put yourself in a position where you have to recreate the wheel. There's absolutely no reason for you to do that when other people are already succeeding and are where you want to be. So find someone to model off.
Which is exactly what you're going to have access to today. You're going to see what we did, how we did it, understand why we did it, and then be able to use that information to create your own challenge.
Exactly. So there doesn't need to be much guesswork here. You can actually hook into that challenge that we ran that has made us it's made us hundreds of thousands of dollars. I wish we'll be able to say
one day.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But obviously up until now, though, we've changed it, we've updated it. This particular challenge was multiple hundreds of thousands. And we've now taken it to another level to get it up to millions. But if you are in a place where you are looking to take your business online and launch, it would be crazy not to go and check this out.
And one thing we do with our clients at Systems by Design is we make them run a 7-day challenge first. And the reason we do that is for them, it allows them to create their brand. Now, if you're forced to do that, you start thinking about your message. You start thinking about, hey, what are you going to do in 7 days? What are your values, right? Then you start thinking about, well, how are you going to connect with people? And all of that information that you create for that 7-day challenge can then be used forever in other parts of your business.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point is, being able to get the prospect to connect. You're going to have to build that brand, and a challenge is an amazing way to do it. We've obviously provided a great example for that. So guys, that's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we're going to be looking forward to coming to you over the coming weeks and months with a lot more information about how you can successfully grow your online business. G, is there anything else you wanted to say and sign off, mate?
No, first one down, and we'll look forward to talking to you much, much more.
Many more to come. Thanks, everyone.